Hey, this short video is going to cover depth perception, and in particular, binocular depth perception or binocular depth cues. I'm in the Unit 3.2 MacNOTES. I'll put a link to these slides specifically in the comments, but you can also find them in Schoology, obviously. Okay, so this week we've been talking about perception, which is how does our mind piece together and take meaning from all of the sensory input that is coming in while we're awake. And even to a certain degree while we're asleep. That's for another unit. But one of the important things, especially in terms of visual perception, is the ability to see distance or to see our environment in 3 dimensions. There's kind of a cool little caveat to this in the fact that we sense visually in 2 dimensions. The retina, or where light is turned into brain power, is just a flat tissue in the back of the eye. So the ability to see in 3D, or the ability to sense distance, or perceive distance, I should say, is all happening in the mind. So it's a perceptual thing. So we talk about depth perception again. It's the ability to see distance. It's the ability to see the world in 3 dimensions. Imagine trying to walk down steps, but you can't tell how far away the next step is. Or imagine trying to drive a car, and you can't tell how far away the light pole in front of you is, or the car in front of you is. Life would be pretty much impossible with if we weren't able to perceive depth. So it's a really important thing, and it's something that starts when we first open our eyes. So the brain kind of learns through experience, like we talked about with perception, think about top-down processing. We learn through experience how to perceive distance, and our brain kind of learns these little tricks or cues that allow us to see distance. So one set of cues are called binocular cues, or the brain uses information from both eyes, binocular cues, in order to perceive distance. One of these binocular cues is called retinal disparity. So we think about, as long as you have 2 eyes, again, crucial for binocular cues that the brain uses, if you have 2 eyes, you have 2 completely different images being fed to the brain at any given time. We don't really think about that because when you look around, you only see one of everything. The brain is doing is patching together essentially input from 2 different cameras to create one image. That is our reality, right? But it's pretty easy to tell. We actually have 2 different images. If you take your hands and make a little window, right? And then do arm's length and pick something that's near you and do a camera 1, camera 2 thing. So close one eye, close the other, close one eye, close the other. If you look through the window, you'll see whatever object is in your hand window there. You'll see it jumping back and forth. And it's because each eye is sending a different perspective to the brain at any given time. The brain does us a huge favor by patching those things together, so we don't see 2 of everything. That would be really confusing, right? Retinal disparity, how it's used for depth, is when the brain does patch those images together, depending on how far away the object you're looking at is, the images have to be patched together, and the distance between those images is different, or look at the word disparity. So if you do your hand window, this is pretty easy to demonstrate. Pick something that's close to you and go camera 1, camera 2. You'll notice that the image of the object bounces a little bit, versus if you pick something that's far away, say across the room, and put it in the hand window and do your camera 1, camera 2, left eye, right eye thing, you notice that image bounces a lot, considerably more than something that's close to you. So your brain knows if you're looking at something and it's really having to do a lot of work and go a long way to patch those images together, the left eye, right eye images, that thing must be very far away. So retinal disparity is one clue that your brain uses to sense distance, depth perception. The other one is convergence, a little easier to explain. If you take an object like this toy, right, and you push it towards your face, what happens to your eyes as something gets closer to you? Your eyes converge on that object, right? So your brain knows that as your eyes are going like this, moving together, converging together, something must be getting closer to you, right? So this toy, you can probably see my eyes converge together. That's another clue that your brain uses in order to see distance. And of course, we call these binocular cues because it takes 2 eyes for your brain to realize how far away something is using retinal disparity and convergence. Okay, so those are your binocular depth cues, things that your brain uses in order to tell distance. Of course, there are also monocular cues. So not necessarily that if you lose an eye, you can still tell distance. Most of us still have two eyes, I think the vast majority of the population, but we still use these monocular depth cues as well to see distance. And there's a few here, and these are in your notes too, but one is relative size. So you can do this by doing your little pinching the head trick. So you want to try to tell the size of things in your visual field. You put your arm at arm's length and try to pick two objects that are the same. So if I've got, it's Halloween, cat ears here, bat cat ears, and I throw these across the room, okay, and I take my pinchers. Here, these cat ears are taking up that much space in my visual field, right? So that's the size they are when I'm looking at them. If I look at the ones that I just threw across the room, they are that big in my visual field, okay? Exact same thing. They're both like these headband things, but the size is considerably different. My brain isn't going like, holy cow, those shrunk as I threw them across the room. My brain knows that those remain the same size, but they look smaller, so they must be farther away, right? Same thing, if you look at a person that's sitting next to you, in your visual field, they might be this big, right? That's the size that you're perceiving them as. Someone across the room might only be this big. You know that's still a normal size human being, or you're making that assumption. They appear smaller, so they must be farther away. And these are called monocular cues because even with one eye, I can see that the headband is this big here and that big there. So my brain is assuming, even with one eye, that's farther away. Here's some examples of baseball players. Again, look here. The sailors that are closer to us are much bigger than the ones that are farther away. Our brains know that these aren't different sized people. The one that appears smaller must be further away. Same thing with the boats. Next one, linear perspective. This helps. And if you've ever drawn pictures when you were a kid and had the road or railroads or whatever and going up to the horizon, you've used this as a depth cue. So our brain assumes that as parallel lines converge together, the closer the lines get together, the farther off that point is. Okay? Linear perspective. You see that at the hallway. As the lines come together, our brain is perceiving distance. A monocular cue, even because you can see and perceive that distance even with one eye, right? That's why you see like this sidewalk art and these rugs, which I think are really cool, kind of use that linear perspective in order to play tricks on our mind. The next one, interposition or overlap. Again, another way we tell distance. And let me just use this. The cards here. So this card, the King of Clubs, is closer to us than the King of Spades, and we know because we can see all of the King of Clubs and only part of the King of Spades. So if we can see all of one thing and only part of the other, the object which we can see all of must be closer. The same way I'm looking at my computer right now. I see all of my computer and only part of the chair behind it. My brain is assuming this computer is closer than that chair. That's why this image in the center with this woman on the horse is really confusing, because things that appear to be in the background in one part of the image also appear to be in the foreground of another. So you see like the horse is partially covered up by the background. It's really confusing because it goes against how the typical world works in terms of the overlap here as a depth cue. Motion parallax. Things that are closer to us tend to move by us faster. We perceive them as moving by us faster. Old school video games use this. So if you see the GIF down here with the bushes, we're perceiving them. Obviously, you have overlap involved there as well. But the bushes are closer, so they're going by faster. And then next in terms of distance is the tall yellow things. They're going by a little faster. And then lastly, the clouds in the sky, which are the farthest away, moving even more slowly. You also have horizon here. Things on the horizon, as you move up the horizon, things appear more distant. So if you look down at your feet, perceive that area as being closer to you, and as you look up towards the horizon, things are getting farther away. Use these a lot of times in like pictures you draw too. So you got a few examples here with this buffalo picture. First of all, the buffaloes that are closest to us down here lower on the horizon appear a little bit bigger. So if I use my pincher there, than the ones further up the horizon. We know that's relative size. And then you have, as you move up towards the horizon, we're perceiving that area on this plane to be further away. Okay. Last one, texture gradient. Things that are nearer to us appear to in more detail. So here's an example on a sidewalk. The closer things are, and again, pretty much every depth cue is here too. So you've got horizon. As you move up towards the horizon, we perceive that as being further away. The size of the bricks, the closer they are to us, the bigger they appear, and then vice versa. But here, as another depth cue, texture gradient, things that are closer appear in more detail. So down here in the closer area of the sidewalk and the lower on the horizon, we can see every little brick, right? But as we move farther and farther away, it just appears to be more of a smooth surface, right? You can kind of see the lines, but you can't see the great detail that you can when things are closer. If you look at the floor that's right next to you right now, I'm sure you can see more details in the floor than you can across the room. It's the same idea. Again, these are all just ways that our brain is perceiving distance, little tricks that your brain has picked up in the 16, 17, 18 years that you've been alive in order to tell distance. Okay, so here, can you pick out the different depth cues in this image? Hopefully you can, and we'll talk about this more in class. You'll see this stuff on the notes and also on the Unit 3 test, obviously. So good luck. If you have any questions, let me know.